Hey MDMs, here's what's happening. Michael here, prompted to make a video based on a text I just got from fellow MDMCer who had an ankle sprain happen with one of his clients in his facility doing a speed ladder drill. And maybe this will be a YouTube video or not, but it's something that has great context to it, and I want to share with you what we do when this happens. Because no matter how long you've been a movement practitioner for, there is going to be something that happens in a session. There's no doubt. It's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. And the longer you're in the business, the longer you have to deal with this kind of stuff. It's just part of the game. So hence why we like to be so well educated and be a movement master, is to be able to help our clients and our athletes in the moment. Certainly a doctor can help out too, but why can't we be able to help out immediately? Because it's right in front of us right then and there. So I'm going to share with you what we do when ankle sprain happens in our facility, and then more importantly, what we do through movement, right? And what we do the next day and the day after that, so that athletes get the help that they need as soon as possible. So here's the context: going through a speed ladder drill, and as you're going, more often or not, an ankle sprain is an inversion ankle sprain. So inversion, as we're going through our chain reaction biomechanics, is when the foot is into over-supination, right? Over-supination, the calcaneus is everted, the talus is up and externally rotated, the tibia and fibia is in an external rotated position, the knee is in an outward rotated position, the foot is in a very firm spot. And basically, as it gets through that pattern, it can't decelerate itself. The mass and momentum is too great. The pronaus longus, IT band, lateral TFL, glutes, they don't have the brake pedal responsiveness to slow that pattern down wherever the foot is, and the ankle rolls, and there becomes too much tension through, let's just make it simple, the outside ligament right on that ankle. And it gets into a stressed scenario where there's a fray. Now, it could be a fray, it could be just an over pull, like when your collar of your shirt is a little bit stretched out, an over pull, or an all out just boom, it's gone. Now, all those are different grades of ankle sprains, and they should be treated differently, especially if the ankle's gone, in a sense, right? It's a total fray. That's medical attention that needs to be taken care of. But more often than not, it's a, ooh, whoa, and it's like, got a little limp going on, and maybe some bruising happening throughout the day. Definitely some swelling happening throughout the day. So what do you do in that session, in that moment? Well, you take care of them, right? You definitely got to manage that person, the athlete, with the utmost care. And if you're in a group setting, well, you got to obviously to get them into safety, make sure there's not balls coming around, plates going around, get them into safety. And then honestly, we have ice on facility to apply as soon as possible, because we want to control the swelling. It will swell. Swelling is a good thing, but you do want to control it and just make that person feel taken care of, because at that point the session's pretty much over, depending on the grade, but for the most part it's pretty much over, and then you have to manage what's going on. But as that's done, the conversation you have with that athlete is not about doing nothing and resting. Right? So there's two concepts I want to bring on. RICE and what that means. RICE means essentially rest, means elevation, it means compression, it means ice. I did it out of order, excuse me. Rest, ice, compression, and elevation. And so rest, do nothing. Literally let the thing rest and heal. Ice, what we just talked about. Compression is keeping that area in a shoe for the short term at the very least, right? But also a compression sleeve. And then elevation is that when it's in rest, you want to have it higher than the heart, because blood pulls down low. So even my foot right here is not higher than my heart. So you want to be in a seated position with the leg higher than the heart to allow pulling to not happen down in the lower extremities as you're not doing muscle action, because muscle action is a pump, right? The soleus deep down here is literally considered a second heart, because it literally pumps pumps blood back up as you're in movement. So it's kind of important. Hence why in a lot of the weddings and military services, people lock out, they'll just pass out, because the heart has a hard time literally pumping blood back up, fighting the system. Not to digress too much more. But now there's this thing called mice. So there's rice and then mice. And essentially, only one letter is changed. That's the first one. Instead of rest, it's movement. And this is the crux of this video. What I really want you to get at is movement, ice, compression, and elevation. Get the ice going, that's great. Get the compression going, that's great. Get the whole taking care of the body, right? That's very important. But you want to start moving. And this is what we talk to our athletes in the facilities, that we want to see you tomorrow. They're like, what? I just sprained my ankle. Yes, I want you to come in tomorrow. And if you're in a group training facility, this is an awesome opportunity to really provide more value. Now, what I mean by value is this term called upselling. And upselling is not a way just to make more money off someone's injury. It's to provide more opportunity. What I love about our industry is the better that we do as a practitioner financially should, dollar for dollar, minute by minute, correlate to the better opportunity and results that we give. Right? That, to me, that's a true awesome, sustainable practitioner, is that the more money they make, the better their clients do. There's no disconnect between those two. So I really believe that's an opportunity for you to provide opportunity to the athlete. And what you want to do is you want to assess where movement is lacking. So if you want to do mice, well, move. Well, how do you move? It hurts to move. That's not necessarily true. It hurts in some movement patterns, and certainly an eversion sprain is going to show some very weaknesses in movement. And typically, it's going to be in plantar flexion and eversion. But you see how I did that? I did plantar flexion and eversion. That's with an open chain. My foot's not connected to the ground. So you have them sit on a table, point their toe, and roll in. That's probably going to hurt, because that's how they actually sprained it in contact. But we know the ankle can move through 6 distinct movement patterns, and I only just described 2 of them. So that gives me at least the opportunity to check the other 4 to get movement that is pain-free. Now, why is movement so important in this mice concept and what we really practice, and how I would go through a session with somebody that actually sprained their ankle literally no more than 24 hours ago to help them progress and heal as fast as possible. So I'm trying to make this as succinct as possible. This is literally, I got the text message like 10 minutes ago. Just want to make a video to make it happen. So this is what happens. I'm going to see somebody, I'm going to have them literally stand, and I'm going to say, can you rock your body forward and backwards? Literally, as a body shift, backwards onto the heels. Sorry, I just lift my toes, almost kind of rock too far, forward and back. And I'm just assessing how that feels. Very, very small motion. They more than likely walked into the facility or on some crutches, right? But they had some pressure on that foot. And I says, how does that feel? And typically, as they come forward, they say it feels fine, but I do feel some kind of pinching in the front. And when they go back, they says, ooh, that's it's a little bit I don't necessarily like it, but it's not painful because it's such a small motion. Well, this is more dorsiflexion as I come forward, and this is more plantar flexion as I go backwards relative at the ankle. I say, okay, great, thank you very much. And then I'm looking for movements that do not hurt. So we found one that was forward, a little bit pinch, but not necessarily pain. I'm going to go side to side, literally that shift. Now let's say it's the right ankle. I'll just keep using the right ankle. When they go this way, right, that's relative pronation or ankle eversion, and that should be relatively fine. But when they shift this way, they say, oh, I don't want to put my head over my foot, because that's going to start being that supination or heel inversion, and that's an inversion sprain. So I got 2 motions out of the 4 that I know can be very possible for movement, for the mice strategy. What about when I rotate the hips? Right, so looking at my right foot, when I spin my hips to the left, I'm getting much more into pronation or inversion. I'm mixing that word up. Eversion, as I go this way, and as I spin my hips to the right with my right ankle sprain, I'm going to get into more supination or inversion. So I at least know that I have 3 strong movements that are going to be the opposite motion of that ankle. I got rotation opposite side or left of a right ankle sprain. I got hips translation to the left or the opposite side of my right ankle sprain. And I have forward motion. Okay, so I got 3 motions that more than likely, you have to test, that are going to be pain-free. I've gotten to someone who had a bad enough sprain that only one of those movements was pain-free. 5 of the 6 were, I don't like it, only 1 were. And that's where we start. We only start with success. This is the biggest takeaway I want you to to grab from this video is start with success. So let's say success is those three: dorsiflexion, translation the opposite side, and rotation the opposite side. Was that not just movement? Of course it was, right? That's the beautiful part of this thing. I moved my pelvis this way. And when I shifted back home, I shifted in a plane of motion that was going towards the ankle sprain, but not to it. As I went forward, I went to dorsiflexion, more relatively speaking, and then back into plantarflexion as my pelvis goes backwards. And as I rotate, I'm getting much more of the pronation. I'm coming into the supination, but I'm not going into supination, but I'm using the movement of supination. And all that movement pumps blood flow. All that movement, and here's the most important part, reactivates damaged proprioceptive input from that ankle. In the MDMC course, I make a video on this exact topic about when you injure or sprain a ligament, you literally are fraying internet Ethernet cords, right? All those hardwired Etherneters out there. And when you do that, what do you think is going to happen? The signal is going to be delayed. It's going to be offset. It's going to be weird. And that's why when someone who sprains an ankle, they often sprain it more. Just as a shoulder dislocation, when you dislocate a shoulder once, the opportunity for dislocated more happens because not only has the ligament been stretched, and ligaments heal way slow because of the lack of the blood flow to that area, but also the communication lines aren't being retrained. So what do you do with the movement pattern? Well, literally, I would have that person in the facility stand or sit, right? Don't be afraid to say, hey, let's just sit down and go through those same patterns, right? I'm in a true stretch here. You can do that on any chair you want, but I'm just moving through my patterns. Even me rotating through my pelvis right now is literally shifting how my knees and how my tib and fib work. I know I'm a little smaller in your screen, but you don't have to be standing to do those things. Or if you are standing, you're just on support, right? Something to give them support. And you start moving them through those reps. And that's really simply, then that's the movement part. Then you have your ice, you have your compression, you have your elevation afterwards. I probably do about a half-hour session because that's all we're really getting with is teaching them how to do this at home as often as they can, avoiding pain, because you want to send movement down, which is blood flow. You want to send movement down because that retrains proprioceptive input to get communication lines built back. Because literally, as that sprain is post-sprain, it literally is starting to reheal itself. You want to reheal itself with proper proprioceptive input because you do not want it to do it again and again and again. There's also something that I found as very helpful is going after the peroneus longus or lateral leg, because that was the decelerating muscle tissue that just didn't have it in them. They just didn't do it well enough, fast enough. It may not be for lack of training, just because the mass and momentum were just too great. So I start foam rolling those zones. And I literally start foam rolling the peroneus longus, especially because it is a massive player in that inversion deceleration. So it's probably pissed off bad because it literally got a few 100 pounds of force driven through it, and it just couldn't manage it. So it's like a massive eccentric load that failed. If you've ever been in a lot of bench press and you got that huge load and just went, whoa, boom, and it hit your chest, your pecs, your tricep, your anterior delt were trying to decelerate that and it failed. It still got a lot of work though. In fact, much more load than a concentric press. So I'm in that, I'm gonna start foam rolling that, and that may be very painful for them. So you have to decrease the amount of intensity or pressure on that as you start to free up that movement pattern. That will continue into the IT band, but the IT band is a place that I like to roll if it's over tight, if it's over compressed, but the controller of the IT band is the TFL and the glute medius, minimus, and even the glute max. All those feed in and integrate into the IT band. So the IT band is not the focus. It certainly is the lateral hip complex, and that is simply just, again, I'm using a ball, which may be too much, but a roller to get in there to start to loosen that up. And how you foam roll is a whole different video, but it's, for the easiest way I can say it, light. Foam roll light, not too hard. Okay, you can also start to stretch out this area. Now, how are you going to stretch out these muscle groups without going into inversion? You kneel. You kneel down. You're not going to get the pronatus longus, but you can definitely get the lateral hip. So I kneel down, I cross over, and you can already see how this leg starts to go into more adduction. And with adduction driving into the sagittal plane, forward and backwards, and into the rotational plane, I'm getting that load right through this zone. You can make that more focused as you get through it. As you can see, I'm here. I'm in a much more of a right foot plantar flex. So you may have to watch out for that. You may have to go into here or even put some sort of roller behind there to rest the foot on so the ankle's in a neutral spot, right? You still got to mind that ankle back there. And I'm going to start opening up that lateral hip because I want to be able to slide my pelvis to the right with the right ankle sprain, gain access to that motion in all three planes of motion, all the way through there, because when I come back up, I'm going to be still limping for a few days potentially, and I don't want that limp to create another movement compensation that you just have to train out once the ankle gets fully healed in 4 to 6 weeks, right? So that's about the standard healing process, 4 to 6 weeks, even 6 to 8 weeks, depending on the severity of an ankle sprain. But you want that hip to stay loose because you want that pelvis to go through that relative motion, even if you don't get that motion all the way down at the ankle, because you don't want to create another problem as it feeds up the chain. Now, I brought a few other tools here. One is this is the game changer. This is a Baps board. This is a game changer in the ability to assess ankle motion in an isolation. So if you don't have a Baps board, I don't say I recommend it, but I certainly recommend it for an ankle sprain because you can put your foot directly on the board, and the Baps board is designed to follow the exact biomechanical, very close biomechanical movement of the ankle complex. As I get much more plantar flexion than I get dorsiflexion, I can get relatively equal right and left motion or lateral kind of, you call that kind of supination or pronation supination, but I also get that amazing ability to roll through motion. And as they go through this pattern, as they're probably going to want to avoid that side of it, right? Because you can see that's much more of an inverted position or supinated position, but they can certainly practice a half roll and a half roll and just stay on the inside. And they're getting that ankle rolling pattern, but they're never going into the dysfunctional or injured space. Again, proprioceptive input is your biggest focus via movement, right? Via movement. That's why the mice concept is much better than the rice concept, because you want to literally be retraining movement as soon as possible. You'd be excited to know that even after total hip replacements, total knee replacements, outpatient clinics, they want that patient out of bed as soon as possible because they realize that hip needs to get integrated into physics as much as possible. The proprioceptors need to start realizing there's something different going on here, because if they used to do it bedridden for several weeks, and the recovery from that bedridden was way greater than just the recovery of the actual surgery itself. So movement pain-free, again, you got to find your pain-free via your 6 patterns and start working it through. You may find it extremely difficult for them to go into an eversion or pronation. You may have to actually sit them down to do this because this is too intense. Typically, we do this with a handheld, and if you do not have a Baps board, but you have some sort of like balance board, right? A Bosu works too, right? I'm not saying it's not going to work, right? But even this one, right? You want to get that relative movement down there, back and forth, to start stimulating as much motion as you can. Okay. A lot of information there for you. Hope that starts to kind of help you digest where to go with an ankle sprain. I mean, literally acute ankle sprain, how you can offer, if you do group training, that's a good opportunity to go to personal training. Or if you do personal training, it's a good opportunity to keep that client in your doors, not because you want to take more money from them, because you have something to offer them, versus just, I'll see you in a few weeks and hope it gets better. And then when they come back, it is better, but now they're detrained physically, they're detrained proprioceptively, and they haven't been getting onto the routine, so they're mentally drained as well because they love coming to your facility. They love training with you. And now they've just been eating a few more, I'm going to go Cheetos on the couch, whatever the case is. So action, 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 movement, 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 pain-free, pain-free, grab onto those proprioceptors who have been damaged, start training them more. This is a great opportunity for commentary and particular individual case studies to bring them in. And I would love to chat with you more all about it. So let's see what we got. If this does make it to YouTube, hey, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We got a bunch of context that we'd love to share and open source with you. And we'll see you guys soon.